Hello, world. Welcome to another week of Golf Subpar. Colt Knost and Drew Stoltz right off the airplane from beautiful, sunny Florida. Sleaze, what a time we had.
What a session down there. Wow. By the way, I didn't realize how far Arizona and Florida were apart until I had to go through and across the entire United States to get there. Holy God, what an episode it was getting to and from there. But, man, was it worth it. That's a hard one to beat, what we just had.
Yeah, we will dive deep into that here in a little bit. But first, we got to give a big shout-out to Brian Gay, 48 years old, getting his 5th PGA Tour win. He beat Wyndham Clark in a playoff, which was kind of tough for us. I like Brian Gay a lot, but Wyndham Clark being a past guest on Golf Subpar, I was really pulling hard for him.
Yeah, no disrespect to Brian Gay. Congratulations. I was rooting my ass off for Dub, obviously. My pupil, my one pupil that I helped mold into what he is today.
He has yet to admit that, by the way.
He knows it, though, subconsciously. He just doesn't want to bring it up on the air. But, yeah, dude, good to see him play well. Good to see him in the hunt. Tough L for him, but I think once he gets one, he goes. He looked really good, and just the sky's the limit for that kid. So
yeah, he did. He had a putt to win, and then got really aggressive with it. Made a nice little 4-footer coming back to force
How about
a
that one, dude? You and I were sitting there watching. I was like,
Yeah.
that's probably not the one you want coming back. Yeah,
I didn't expect him to
a
have
little
much work
aggressive
coming
bait,
back,
but he went for it.
I like that he went for it. There's no doubt
He
about
didn't
that.
gimp it up there.
Brian Gay did what Brian Gay does, makes putts.
Hits it straight and makes a shitload of putts. That's exactly what he does.
So hats off to him. But Sleaze, we just got back from West Palm Beach, Florida. Spent 3 days down there. Played some golf, did some interviews. It was an absolute blast. We had Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, Matthew Wolff.
Correct.
What a time it was. The interviews are great. Those are coming out here soon. But there was some golf played as well.
Yes, let's get to this because I'm getting bombarded on Twitter right now, like what happened, all this stuff. So we need to just clear the air, go through it right now. Let's set the whole table for him. Here, where were we playing? All of that.
Yeah, so we're Friday night. We're at Justin Thomas's house filming. We're going to play golf on Saturday because we had the day off. Our interview with Matthew Wolff wasn't until Sunday. So we're having a couple pops over at JT's house. Ricky's there. We start talking a little bit, get the match going. It ended up being Justin Thomas and myself versus you and Ricky Fowler.
Correct.
At Grove 23, Michael Jordan's golf course. And as you said, I would make a great GM. I know how to pick them.
I got to say, I don't know, after 2 days of being down there, I don't know what you're feeding your horses, but they run for you. They run their asses off for you. I don't know if you're giving them the spurs or the carrot, but the boys are moving.
I said I was the fattest jockey in history and
He had
rode my horse to victory.
Of thoroughbreds. I was looking over at times like, damn, I'm playing pretty good. And we were getting drummed over.
Yep.
I was looking, they birdied the last. I was like, you birdied the last 6. Yeah, I was like, added up at the end. I was like, oh my God, saw some really good golf though.
The wind blew 20, 25 miles an hour on Saturday, and Grove, it's not crazy hard or anything, but Justin Thomas, he's so impressive. Goes out and shoots 8 under par 64. And it was just like
snooze
at the end
fest.
of the day, I was adding up like, oh yeah, 8 under, no bogeys. Okay.
Snooze fest. Looked easy.
Nothing.
There wasn't any weird putts or chip ins or anything like that. Just
it's incredible.
All of a sudden,
that kid is clicking right now. Obviously we saw it recently. He had a chance to win, but you got to be looking ahead.
If he ain't on your short list, then I don't know who is, because we saw it firsthand this week, and it looked about as clean as it's going to look. Like you said, 20, 25 mile an hour wind. That's heavy wind down there too. Chipping, putting, irons look great. Obviously you don't shoot 8 under without everything looking great, but he was a force to be reckoned with. Yeah.
There's no doubt. And you had Ricky Fowler as a partner who's going through some swing changes right now. Kind of got off to a slow start, but then he got hot in the middle, made a big comeback. He's close, I feel like.
I do too. I felt like we saw stretches with the driver. I was like, damn, those are he was really moving it, really hitting it. I think he hit the best shot that I saw all week. If I had to go through most impressive shot of the week, second day when you were playing with Wolff on 11, the par 5, into the wind, into a pretty strong wind, 15, 20 miles an hour. Everybody had 270 to the whole back flag into, probably playing 290, something like that, and hit the driver off the deck. The high cut that landed on the green and then released. You don't see many drivers coming in that soft. But yeah, there's no question. His game is there. I think it's just a matter of some confidence for Rick. A couple good rounds, a good tournament here or there. When we were in the car with him, he was talking about it. I'm not playing that bad, dude. I'll just have 2 or 3 really bad shots that cost me 2 shots apiece. You know what I mean? It'll cost me 6 shots right there. He's talking about Vegas and some of the wedges and things like that. So it's it's not far off. It's just my shots. I'm not getting much out of it right now.
Yeah, for sure. And this was also my first time to play with Matthew Wolff. We played with him on Sunday down there. He was my partner. I took him, rode him to victory once again.
You fed him well too.
But man, it's his game's interesting to me. He can hit it a little wild, but then he always seems to recover very well. He's got so much talent. He's still kind of raw, in my opinion. He's going to continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah, as he gets refined. You said it best. There's still some shots. He had a couple crooked drives or whatever, but you can just see the sound of that ball coming off the face is pretty rare. Like there's not many guys I can name where like it's got that heavy hit and it's just up and it's fat and it's a long ways away really quickly. Can hit higher than almost anyone I've seen with the driver at least. And
that was the first thing I noticed when I walked onto the range.
Was just like,
I mean, I'd hit balls with him before and stuff, but I just didn't remember it. But I step out of the cart and he's hitting balls and he just hits this first iron and it's just whoosh.
It's
like
heavy. It's
so
just like
loud.
the ball's on
Damn.
that face for a long time. You know what I mean? It's just coming out of the center. It feels like every time. And some of those drives, even when we'd get into the wind, he'd hit occasional, like he hits it really high, obviously. And some of these ones were like spinning. And I was like, that's not going to be that far. You know, that's spinny. That's going to get eaten. And then it would land. And I'd be like, holy shit, how did it still flew 293 into.
That's the one thing I thought where Justin was so far ahead of the others, though. Is just controlling it into
up
the
and
wind.
down trajectory.
Yeah, like he can control his flight a little bit. I thought that's the one thing Wolf kind of needs to work on a little bit is controlling his ball into the wind. Like even on one iron shot, he's like, I like 7 here, but I gotta hammer it and flight it, and it just kind of went up in the air and got smoked. And I'm like, that's the one thing I feel like he kind of needs to work on.
And that's probably like that's a common thing you and I talk about like on the radio. Like when guys first come out, super talented, they're not like take Justin Thomas for instance, perfect example. I feel like when he first came out, it was a lot of full swings with wedges, things like that. And now you look at him, he's one of the best, if not the best, for your money with wedge players, changing up his tempo, changing up the flight and trajectory and things like that. And I think it's just one of those things that probably as he gets older, that gets tightened up. But just watching him hit it, like I mean, I don't know how many guys there are. If Matthew Wolff really went at one as hard as he can, I don't know how many guys out there can put it past him. Yeah, it's a small number if there's any.
But I'll tell you this: playing with those three over those 2 days made me very happy that I'm sitting behind this microphone.
Oh my God, same thing. I was like, I know I've been out for a while and I never was really threatening these dudes, but Jesus, I don't care what you do. I could take every performance enhancer in the world, go see every. It's not even. They're so good, man, so good. Yeah. It's a joke right now.
It is, and Grove 23, by the way, got to thank them for the hospitality. I mean, the place is just awesome. I mean, clubhouse, incredible. The grill room, I mean, the ultimate hangout if you want to watch some football, have some cocktails.
Yeah.
Just the whole place is just beautiful. MJ did an unbelievable place for that. The pro shop, if you're a Jordan fan, you're in heaven.
You can spend some money. I don't think the shop's going to struggle for business out there. But, yeah, really cool place just to kind of give a rundown of what it looks like. There's no trees anywhere on property. It's out there. It's pretty exposed, so the wind blows every day. The clubhouse really modern, really like kind of new looking, but it's not anything massive. It's like pretty simple, but very clean. And there's just not that many people out there. But the guys that are out there, like you see some dudes. I mean, it's kind of like Scottsdale up here, right? Like they're kind of all congregate in one area. I feel like, and you never know who you're going to see when you walk in out there.
Yeah, we're in there having lunch Sunday after the round. Me, you, Justin, Ricky, Wolf, and Justin's girlfriend Jill. All of a sudden, Dustin Johnson strolls up, pulls up a chair. Normal stuff.
Yeah, AJ was going out to play or whatever. I mean, it's just that's where all the dudes hang out. I feel like Jordan builds a spot, and you get an invite to join there, you're probably gonna use it.
And the practice facility is just world class.
That's probably why all those. I mean, there's so many good golf courses down there. I think that's probably why most of the guys gravitate towards there. They can be there and no one's gonna bother them. There's no, you're not getting hassled. No one cares because there's a ton of other guys just like that. But the facilities are awesome. Double-sided range, a lot of short game, and the greens were for this time of year. I thought very good down there. Yeah.
So if you ever get a chance to go check out Grove 23, do it. You will like it. But Sleaze, let's get to this week's guest. Very interesting interview. Paul Bissonnette, otherwise known as Biznasty of Spittin' Chicklets. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, if you've ever listened to Spittin' Chicklets, they got a huge show there at Barstool talking hockey. You kind of know what you're getting into, and it's so fun having like a golfer, and it's kind of like I don't want to say like PC or button, but they're aware of what. And then you get like a NHL guy, especially on like Barstool, where they say whatever the hell they want. Like he just lets it rip and lets it fire. So it's like a total different interview, but. Dude, what a stud, and I mean, pretty cool. Like he made his way, just kind of being a tough dude and beating people. He's like, that's how I needed to get to the league, and that was my best shot, and that's what I did.
And they are absolutely killing it over at Spittin' Chicklets. But like he said at the end, he goes, "Dude, I just let it go, and then y'all can edit it whatever y'all want at the end."
Yeah. So when we got done with it, I was like, that was really really fun. I wonder how much of that won't make it because there's definitely some that won't. But
all right, but before we get to Biznasty. A word from our official sponsor, Rockform. Sleaze, we had these speakers down at Grove 23. They were bumping. Everybody was having a great time. There might have been a little few dance moves thrown out around the golf course. You never know.
Couple moves. We did have them down there at the Grove thumping. There's not a lot of people complaining about music down there, so you could do whatever you want. But these things are great. They're extremely loud. You put them right out. The magnet is really strong. You can go over any kind of bumps. Doesn't mess it up. And you can link it to your phone, which I like too. If you just need a quick call, I don't want to be anybody that's out there on the phone for a long time. Be like, hey, stop bothering me. I'll call you later. Bam. You can take it right there on the Rockform.
And if you want to get real rowdy, you can pair two of them together. It's awesome. And as we've always say it's waterproof, which is huge because when you get a little too many, things get spilled.
It can happen.
But with rock form, you're fine.
Absolutely.
So definitely,
these things are built to last.
Yeah, and go out there, get your Rockform speaker. It is absolutely incredible. Go to rockform.com and enter code SUBPAR for 25% off. That's code SUBPAR at ROKFORM.com for 25% off Rockform speakers. All right, here he is, Paul Bissonnette, otherwise known as Biznasty on Golf Subpar.
All right, we have a very special guest in the house today, NHL veteran, host of the Spittin' Chicklets podcast on Barstool Sports. Colt, safe to say, arguably the toughest bastard we've ever had in studio here. Paul Biznasty Bissonnette. What's up, my brother?
What's going on? I like the podcast because they pump your tires at the start.
They do, yeah. I feel like you kind of have to.
Very uplifting.
Nice. We got to go hard at the beginning. You know what I mean? We got to bring a guy in.
Love it.
But it's true. You guys are killing it over at Spittin' Chicklets. It's really cool to see.
It's been fun. I mean, Ryan and RA did a good job off the start, and then grabbing Mikey, the producer, to improve sound quality and all the technical stuff and growing the social media. And then after I'd established myself as far as media with the Coyotes, after my first year when they'd been eliminated in the regular season, I was like, you know what, let's jump on this thing full time, and it's been awesome. It's been life changing. I'm very grateful that I did it, and I never thought that I'd find something to be more passionate about than my NHL career.
Yeah.
And it's probably surpassed that at this point.
I was going to ask because like a lot of athletes, obviously, when their career's coming to an end in their sport, they don't know what the hell they're going to do. Did you always kind of plan on going into like the media, TV, radio kind of thing?
So once the Twitter had exploded a little bit, and that's a shout out to Scotty Upshaw who convinced me to get on it. I was very anti-Twitter because everyone thought it was just like to update people as to what you were going to do, like hey, heading here, heading there, and then once I realized that you were able to show your personality on it, and then it blew up. Given the fact that I was playing in Arizona and they were pretty loose. Like if I was playing in a big market, I wouldn't have been able to tweet the stuff I was tweeting. So then it gained a big following, and I think that ultimately I knew that I would go in that direction. I didn't even know what podcasts were when I started it, but ultimately it drove me down this road, and yeah, it's great. One thing it does is it provides you that locker room presence again. Where I didn't play much. I was kind of the guy who filled up water bottles, stuck up for his teammate. I was a healthy scratch more games with the Coyotes than I played. And just being back with that in that locker room feel with that camaraderie and interviewing guys and bantering is kind of filled that void.
That's awesome. Yeah.
How did it come to be with Barstool? Like, so you got out. You're big on Twitter and doing all that stuff. But how did the opportunity with Barstool come along to do like Spittin' Chicklets with Whitney?
Well, they were already with them. I believe Barstool picked them up after they'd done probably 15, 20 podcasts. And just at the time, they had that infrastructure set up, and they were on the uprise. And from when I joined to now, I think they just moved into that New York studio when I joined with Barstool. And now within, I think, 2 years, they had to move to that even bigger building, and it's turned into a juggernaut. So I'm really grateful at the fact that they had a sales team in place. They had a formula in order to grow the social, in order to, basically direct more listeners to our podcast, and it's treated a lot like a business. I mean, we try to have as much fun as possible, but behind the scenes, there was a lot of work to be done, and definitely grateful that we were with Barstool in order to help with all that stuff.
Yeah, they've absolutely exploded, and y'all have done now 298 episodes of Spittin' Chicklets. That's insane.
Congrats.
I think we're on like 35.
Yeah, we're on
we're coming.
30 something. We're right behind you.
But at what point did you know, like, hey, this is turning into something really big?
So I believe before I joined, they were averaging between 50 and 75,000 listeners, and they had a predominantly New England listenership. Is that a word?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. Sometimes the brain clicks out. That's from all the concussions. But I had a strong Canadian following. So once I hopped on, and in the time I hopped on, I was still going through my crazy days where, I mean, I think if people follow the podcast, they've probably heard some of these insane stories. I mean, Shitty Cindy is one of them that I believe Ray Whitney told you to bring up.
Yep.
I got a girl now, so I got to be careful exactly what I divulge. But if you go back to old episodes and listen, we just got really crazy off the hop. And, things as far as politically correctness have definitely changed a lot over the course of since I've jumped on, and I've kind of altered my line a little bit. But just the explosiveness off the start and how how willing I was to tell all these crazy stories, I think, is what grew it. And I think before COVID hit, we were getting over 500,000 downloads an episode. Wow. But people are very into routine, and we lost some commuters along the way when everything shut down. But I think we're still close to that 500,000 range.
Would you be wanting to do something like let's say Barstool didn't exist and you were just on television breaking down hockey or things like that? Because Barstool, you can do what. Pretty much you can say whatever you want. Like, they're pretty loose with the PC stuff. That's part of the appeal of it, right? People are sick of and tired of the like super PC. You get on there and tell shitty Cindy stories or whatever you want to do. Would you want to be like in studio breaking down hockey if it wasn't like, the Barstool podcast?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a very polished speaker. Well, at least I don't think so. To go and do that corporate grind where if you say you have to be worried about saying the wrong thing. And I mean, Milbury just went through it, right? He said
bunch of guys.
He referred to ladies as distractions, which I can't say that on NBC. So they actually kicked him out of the bubble. Yep. He got pigeon tossed. So I don't really want to have to deal with that stress, and I want to be who I am. And I feel that when you have to pertain to that corporate dollar and the business sense, you have to really stay in your lane, and that's just not me. So the podcast forum was definitely a place that I was grateful for.
Yeah, and one of our guests, Jeremy Roenick, was on Spit and Chicklets.
Yeah.
And the whole thing happened with him, which we've had him on. He's told the whole story. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of ridiculous.
Friend, he told the story, but like your show is the one he got in trouble for. Was that a shock to you? Like when he said that, were you thinking like, oh, this is going to blow up and he's going to get in trouble? Because it was clearly said in jest.
So I don't know how you guys operate when you're podcasting, but I was thinking about the next question, and I remember him saying it, and I made a comment like, "Whoa," like you kind of flirt in that line, especially with today's standards. But it wasn't something that made me think of it after we'd recorded. And we always give people the option to edit whatever they want out of the podcast because we don't want to put guys in a jeopardizing position. And even just hearing it, I'd assume that he had the relationship, given he went on a 3-week vacation with his coworker, and maybe he made those jokes on the vacation. So when it first came out for like 3 or 4 days, there was nothing, and then NBC dropped that statement, and then I was like, oh no, and like my heart sank, and it was hard to deal with for at least a couple months. Like I was very emotional about it because I know how much the podcast and my job post career has it took a lot of focus off if you don't have anything that you're happy about to do. I understand guys can go down this dark place, and I feel that our podcast jeopardized that, and we stripped him of his livelihood essentially. And there was a lot of guilt associated with that. I called him multiple times to apologize, but JR is the man, and he was like, "Biz, it's all good." I think that relationship was coming to an end anyway. And I think that it's JR. He'll land on his feet, and I think people appreciate his rawness.
Yeah, he's got that R-rated network coming up that he's trying to do. I don't know if you've heard about that. Like basically like sports broadcasting, but no filter.
No filter.
Like the way dudes talk sitting on their couch when they're watching a football game. Like bring that, but bring it to the actual broadcast. So you have the option to listen to that instead.
Well, I'll say this: the reason why I loved watching NBC with the hockey broadcast is when him and a few other guys were on there. They're gonna be a bit controversial. They're gonna say some things that necessarily you don't agree with, but they also have that credibility from being in those circumstances, and they do push the envelope. And I feel just the way it's all going is it's a little stale. And you know what? I think that it's perfect given the platforms that we have access to. That people who have that type of attitude will now take their own lanes and then leave the corporate jobs up to people who are willing to just go and fall in line.
Yeah. And he did text me. I told him you were coming on, and he's like, dude, ask him why the hell they deleted that part of the thing. Because I guess y'all went back and deleted it. He's like, I don't think I did anything wrong. I shouldn't have been fired, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, just for the simple fact of I respect JR, and I just didn't want any more negative attention going towards him. And even I reached out to Catherine Tapp, and I didn't hear back from her. But even as a woman in sports media, I can understand where it would be difficult. So it was, as I said, a couple months of a lot of guilt. And if I ever see her in person, I'll be very apologetic for kind of bringing that negative attention towards her, but in the same breath, like I'm not gonna really apologize for what JR said. He felt comfortable, and I would imagine jokes like that were flying on the vacation.
Yeah, it was clearly a joke, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much. There's just no wiggle room right now in that world to say anything even close to it. That's what's the hardest part about being in that broadcast world. Colt does it on golf. You know what I mean? On golf, you say, I like listening to these guys because they're going to push the envelope. So on one hand, you're like, you want guys that are entertaining and will say some shit during a broadcast that might not be popular, but as soon as they, don't toe that line perfectly and go over, it's like, oh, you're fired.
You ever been called in for saying something wrong?
I actually don't think I have. But I haven't done it too many times.
But you have to turn into a different person.
Thinking
correct?
about it. Like,
dude, you talk in a way like you never would talk sitting on the couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I mean, I was an on-course reporter during the PGA Championship, and two of my good friends, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, are paired together, and I'm in their group, and we're walking down the fairway, and they're with me, and I'm like mid-talking, and I'm like, God, don't say anything dumb. This is gonna be this. I mean, it'll be one and done for me. Like, I'll be out of here so fast. But it is scary. Like, I'm so conscious of that button on my backpack, like hot mic, and I'm just like, God. I mean,
some of those golfers are wild. I mean, I think Anthony Kim, when I was playing here, he would hit up the W.
The guy.
He would go to bed at 6 o'clock and he'd have a 7 o'clock tee time.
He's not scared.
There's good stories go around about AK everywhere you go. Like, last time he was here, he did this and this, and then showed up at this time, and then played. You know what I mean? Like, and then President's Cup stories and things like that. Like, he's the I don't know who it is in hockey, but he was the guy that, like, he sent it like a rock star out there. He was the odd man out.
I'll tell you who because I'm a big hockey guy, so I know him. Bugsy would remind you probably of AK.
My goodness.
See, there you go. I say a name like that, Bugsy.
There's the hockey equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really make them like that anymore.
Ryan Malone.
They're throwbacks. Who's the John Daly on tour now? I mean, I guess Dustin Johnson was a guy who was getting after it quite a bit.
Back in his day.
I don't think he's afraid.
Not anymore.
I don't think he's
got the
afraid.
kids
But
and
he keeps it more hush-hush. Daly's like open about it. It's like, dude, I just went to Vegas. I blew my entire winner's check in one night. You know what I mean? And I'm actually in debt now to MGM.
But that's the same thing. Once again, they don't make them like that anymore.
No, throwbacks.
I mean, it's just they're athletes now, and they're focused and boring. Not as fun.
Protein shakes. I couldn't adapt to that life. I was still partying in the off season too much, so my body deteriorated.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your hockey career. I mean, you supported your teammates. You were a fighter. At what point in your career did you know, like, that's my role? Like, I'm the guy that's supposed to go in there and fight.
I was somewhat of a decent player growing up. I was actually a defenseman, and as I got to pro hockey, I started my time in the ECHL, had success there. I just could never be the, I guess, reliable enough defenseman at 20 minutes a night at the AHL level to where the final time I was called up to the AHL, writing was on the wall, no pun intended, where they had me listed as fourth line left wing. I'd never played forward in my life, at least at the pro level. And I think I think that I had to adapt and add that to my bag. And I was always willing to do it. It wouldn't happen as much. But it was like a click that went off where I made an instant decision when I saw that. I said, hey, let's give this a run. I think that if there's one way that I will get to the NHL, it will be doing that. And I got the shit beat out of me for a couple of years in the American League. I did okay for a guy who wasn't as experienced, but all of a sudden I went from fighting guys who I was playing maybe 20 minutes again every night where you'd have those net front rivalries, to where I was fighting the meatheads on the other team. I'd be fighting guys who were taking steroids. And at the AHL level, it came a point in the NHL where they started eliminating like the just one-dimensional goons. So they all got sent down to the American League. So I was stuck fighting these guys. You know, I was getting my nose broken and I was just really out of my league. But ultimately, I took my lickings enough and I was a decent enough player, worked on my skills as a forward where I ended up carving out a 5.5-year NHL career. And I'm grateful for it, and I give that advice to all these young guys coming up. Don't be stubborn in your role. Just adapt. Do what you can in order. It's a hustle. That's exact. It's a straight hustle.
You got to find a spot.
It's a hustle.
How can I get there? I read online that you used to work with some of your teammates, or some of your teammates worked with you when you first started this, on like fighting techniques, like in practice. And what makes a good fighter? Like, you're going into practice, and some dudes are going to show you, like, here's how you whoop ass. What are they telling you to do?
Well, I'll be the first one to say I wasn't like these heavyweights who would just hang on, and all of a sudden they'd be chucking them, and punches would be hitting them, and they wouldn't care. They'd basically go blow for blow. I was a little bit more defensive, but I'd have to probably credit Dennis Bombi, who is a fighter in Wilkes-Barre with the Penguins, for teaching me techniques. And he was a veteran who'd played a little bit in the NHL. And then ultimately willingness. You got to be willing to be able to go out there every night. And after you get your ass kicked, most people will be like, I don't want to keep doing this. And as I said, that was I think that my first year of the American League when I played forward, I played 59 games. I think I got in 29 fights.
Wow.
So every other night, like, my knuckles were shot to shit. My head would be aching. Like, most days I'd go put my helmet on and it was like tighter than normal because I'd have all these welts on my head.
Hey, coach.
Yeah. We just actually had Jeremy Yablonsky on. He played for the Binghamton Senators, and they just had this like dark, gloomy rink. You couldn't get away from anyone. He was running around, and I fought him twice in one game, and he bambied me both times. And it was
Bambi.
I love the hockey
Dude,
terminology.
hockey terminology is
I looked like
the
Bambi
best.
out there after I got hit. I was trying to catch my bearings, but
They got the best slang, dude. The best.
But going back to the hustle is like I was doing it ultimately in hopes that I would be doing it for a larger paycheck, and that ended up working out when I played 15 games with the Penguins the 2009 year, and that was the year they won the cup, and I was up for probably about 25, 30 games. So I got to play with Crosby, with Malkin, and be around these guys, and that's something I'm going to be able to tell my kids one day.
Yeah, that's cool. If I say the date October 16th, 2008, does it ring a bell?
October, maybe a Calder Cup?
First ever fight in the NHL. Do you remember who it was against?
2000 what?
It said 2008. Was it
Oh,
wrong?
2008. Jesus.
It was on the internet, dude. It's
Yeah.
true.
It's
Yeah.
gotta be true.
It's definitely true.
like-
I heard 2016 in my head. That's why
October
I was like,
16th, 2008.
my first NHL fight it wasn't against Matt Bradley.
Matt
was it?
Bradley is
Oh,
correct.
geez.
Wow, that brain's still working. Don't worry about it.
And that was probably my most successful one. It was
Yeah,
all
you docked him to the ground, yeah. Or knocked him to the ice.
I threw a punch, I fell down, and I got back up, and there was this big opening, and I don't know if he thought the fight was over, but I just threw a punch. And what was cool about that is playing in Pittsburgh, I think at the time, I mean, the Steelers were good, but they're just so hardcore sports where I knocked him out on the ice. He had to go for repairs. I split his lip open, and at that point, every time I would go out in public, I started getting recognized. So that was kind of like a wow moment for me, and I think that made enough noise where the next year where I was put on waivers because they did have a couple other tough guys and they had a very strong lineup, I got picked up. I got 3 teams put a claim in for me, and that's actually how I ended up in Arizona.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Go ahead.
Oh, I just got a question about because Colt follows tons of hockey. I don't follow a ton of hockey, but like I'm very intrigued by like the goon enforcer role. Like, so how does it work? Like, all right, you're the guy that you're gonna protect people. You're gonna get in fights. You got in 29 fights in 59 games or whatever. How does it work? Like, if you're sitting there and somebody hits a dude on your team that's like off limits, does the coach come up to you and be like, "Yo, you got to go drop bombs on this guy right now"? Or when do you know to go in and just wreck on a dude?
No, if you're fairly one-dimensional and that's your role, if your willingness and your spunk wears out, I don't think you're going to last long at that level. So usually I knew exactly when I had to go do it, and I think it was my willingness is what ultimately led me to the NHL. Because guys who have done it a while will tell you eventually they lose that luster. They're just kind of fed up with it, and they don't have that natural ability to just like get up and be like, I want to go somebody up. It's hard to keep.
I'm losing mine, dude. I had it for a while, but I'm losing it now, bro. You know what I mean? I can only do so many years.
Yeah, on the golf course, yeah. Dummy and guy.
Colt, dude, I'm getting sick.
Dude, but
of it.
I've talked to that with Mike Commodore because I mean he fought a lot in his career,
yep.
and he told me towards the end of his career it was kind of towards the end of Colt Knost as well. And he's like, Colton would come over to me every game. And he's like, let's go. And he's like, damn it, I don't want to.
No.
Like, you're just going to kick the shit out of me. Can we just please
That's
not do
a tough
this?
role, dude.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Commodore was actually making some pretty big paychecks, so he didn't necessarily have to fight towards the end. But coaches never really had to tell me. If anything, when I was here, Tip would usually tell me, you don't need to. We don't need that right now. If you're up a goal, we don't want momentum to be lost. And there was actually a case here, and you could probably find it on YouTube. I think we were up 3-1 on Philadelphia, and Jay Rosehill took a run at Shane Doan. And Shane Doan, legendary Phoenix, Arizona Coyote, jersey in the rafters. I'm not sure how they even ended up on the ice together, but he was that enforcer for their team. And rightfully so, when your team was down, you were trying to do anything to possibly get your team going, which would be draw my attention and get a scrap in his case. So I looked at Tip and I said, I don't give a that we're up 3-1. He just took a run at the captain. I'm going this guy right now. And we had a very spirited bout, and then they scored 4 unanswered and we lost.
A very spirited bout.
There's this massive mental momentum shift thing that kind of existed for a while where, like, if you had the lead, don't fight no matter what. We don't want to give him any reason to get up and get motivated here. And in that case, I had to go. You could see Shane Doan in the clip. Like, he came over the bench because we ended up ending the fight right by our bench. And he's like, pat me in the back. He's like, f***ing rights. And the whole building's amped up. So ultimately, it was cool that I stuck up for the captain, but it sucks that after the game, everyone's in the room like.
Same in Pittsburgh. Like, if someone took a run at Sydney, you're like, nope. That's an untouchable, and you just go in and it's immediate.
So Eric Goddard, who was a monster, he was the fighter for the Penguins, but because they had Sid and Malkin and all these very valuable young assets, and fighting was still somewhat relevant in the game, I think that's why I was able to make the team at a training camp, which was cool because I'd ran into when I first signed pro, I started drinking a lot. All of a sudden, you're this young guy and you get money, and you're living on your own. And I was hitting the booze pretty hard. I was chasing like crazy, and I kind of just fell off a little bit. I was interested in a lot of the wrong things. So I had this big falling out with the Penguins because I ended up knocking some dude out in a bar fight. Where that's why I was sent to the ECHL the second time. Well. I forgot my train of thought there.
Dude, thank God you're a podcast pro. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, that's where the CTE kicks in. But ultimately, I went from being in the ECHL to getting called up and them switching my position to the next year. At the start of the year, I started the year in the NHL. Mm-hmm. So I thought my career was potentially over. I didn't know if another team was going to sign me because it was going to be the end of my entry-level deal, to where Michel Therrien calls me and he says, "Hey, you're starting the season. Call your parents. You've made the NHL." And we actually started the season overseas for the World Premier Games in Sweden. And boys, like my first dose of the NHL, we ended up. I think it was the second night we were there. Hal Gill reached out to Matt Sundin, who in Sweden, he's like a god. And he was dropping the ceremonial face-off, and he says, "Hey, we're going to this restaurant, and there's a bar up top. We kind of want to throw like a team camaraderie party, just get the boys into it." And while we're sitting down for dinner, like I notice all these rockets coming into the restaurant, and I'm like, "This is like ridiculous. Sweden's unbelievable. Like I might even move here in the off season to train." And then all of a sudden, the coaches after dinner get up and say, "Have a good night, boys," and they're kind of like patting guys on the shoulder on the way out, and I could smell something was up. And then we moved upstairs, and all those girls that were coming to the restaurant, that's where they'd shifted to. So all of a sudden, it's us and about 50 rockets that Matt Sundin had lined up for all the boys because Hal Gill teed us up, and I ended up getting my first NHL game in Sweden, and
I can get used to this.
Oh man,
this is
Did
pretty
we
fun.
I was like, I'll fight anybody.
Yeah.
Did we play the wrong sport, Colt?
Yeah.
Did that ever happen to you?
I don't know
Team
if you
camaraderie
if you can't
meeting?
notice, I'm not really built for hockey.
Okay, yeah,
I'm just gonna
you're
stick to what I'm good
You're
at.
right. You did
You were
it.
like
You
the
did- you
little
did it right.
the little short stumpy guy in Blades of Steel.
Yeah.
You got to pick your players. So maybe you could have made it.
Nah, I'm good. I'll stick with golf.
How often did that happen? You said you knocked a dude out in the bar fight. How often, like, you're known as the enforcer guy. When you go out in Pittsburgh, Phoenix, wherever it was, did people ever try to like, "Oh, there's the dude. I'm gonna go check him"?
Yeah, as I grew up, that kind of left me. I think that the stupidity of it and how young you are, and you're just caught up in that lifestyle. And yeah, when you go out in public, even when you're in the American League, you're in this small town where certain guys will challenge you, and eventually you grow up. Similar to like all these crazy sex stories that I had early on. Like I was just fighting and chasing and drinking, and then you get to a certain age and you look back and you're like, how that was a different person.
Yeah, I love it. But you mentioned the locker room talk earlier and stuff, and I know you hockey guys, I love to pull pranks on each other and stuff. You obviously have a long season together. Any good ones that come to mind?
I was not a good prankster, but there was plenty of good ones. The old school ones were insane, of guys putting guys' cars on blocks. I think it was actually here. Shane Doan was one of the guys had. The stuff when you used to, if you stole money, there was like, if you touched it, it would turn your hands purple.
Yeah,
Instead of the one that exploded, there was a different version of it. And one of the guys on the team had put that in all the guys' gear.
I've heard that.
So
we heard that from a base. Was it Cody Ross?
No, I thought Ray Whitney told us that.
Oh, maybe it was Whitney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
it might
you
have
go.
been Ray Whitney. So all of a sudden the guys get on the ice and they start sweating, and then everybody on the ice is purple.
Turns purple. Yeah.
And it was a bit of a nightmare for Stan Wilson, who's been the trainer here for I think 2,000 or 2,500 games, like long time trainer. And the team had to buy everybody new gear because everybody was purple. Another good one was Brad May used to go get guys keys to their car, take down the sunroof, and then fill the entire car up with popcorn that was left over from the last game. And a couple of the guys had new vehicles, so all this buttery popcorn just coating these brand new leather seats. And yeah, I would have been pissed. When my co-host Ryan Whitney, so there could be some confusion for the listeners
when we
right
throw
now.
out Whitney, yeah.
I played with Ray Whitney, who played 20 years, superstar forward. My co-host is Ryan Whitney, who is a very established defenseman in the NHL. So he was telling stories of like Chris Letang used to get it pretty bad. And he used to get like new Dior dress shoes, and they would nail them to the floor. So he'd go to pick them up, and
Perfect.
So he every week he was getting his suit messed with, where they sew the pockets to closed, and he couldn't get his car keys. So tons of crazy pranks. Yeah,
I saw the one of your old teammates did it to you up in Pittsburgh. It was during the HBO special. He went and cut your laces right before the game.
that was Matt Cook, and then they put bubble gum.
In the gloves.
Double bubble at the end of the glove where it's so thin up there you can't really get it out. So I was almost late for practice. That would have been a big fine. So thankfully I got out there in time.
Cutting the laces seems like out of bounds. Like now I got to relace these whole things. I'm gonna be late.
Yeah, pain in the ass.
All that shit.
I'd rather that than them ruining my leather seats in my car with the buttery popcorn.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your golf, because I know you enjoy playing, and some people might call you a sandbagger from things I saw on the internet. This is golf.
What's
Subpar.
the index right now?
Do you want to clarify that you're not a sandbagger?
I'm not a sandbagger. I'm not a very good golfer. I can put some holes together where I'll get the birdie every now and then. I'll probably get like one birdie around, 3 or 4 pars, but there'll be some holes where I have meltdowns. So the backstory to it is we have this content piece we call the Sandbagger Invitational, and now we've created it into this series. And originally, we were going to Halifax to interview Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon. That was going to be the biggest get that our podcast had ever gotten, 2 of the league's biggest superstars. And they're fairly private. And I'm telling them, hey, we're going to do an interview, and then we'll even go after, we'll go golfing after, and we'll bring the cameras. And you could tell Sid was like, he didn't want to tell me no, but it wasn't happening. So I'm like, okay, fine, we'll just go golfing. And then they agreed to that. So then I roped them in where I brought the camera around, and we were going to have a golf match where we gave our handicaps. Well, it was a wet course, so we teed up a lot closer than usual. So I gave my handicap based on like we were playing farther back, and I had the front nine of my life. So Nathan MacKinnon and Crosby being very competitive, Nathan MacKinnon more so, was like, this guy's a sandbagger, and he was genuinely pissed. So I'm like, okay, we're going to call this the Sandbagger Invitational. So we ended up beating them. They had to take us out for dinner and a few nice bottles of wine. And ultimately, the entire internet thinks I'm a sandbagger now because I had the front 9 of my life.
So I watched that, and I've actually played that golf course and been out in downtown Halifax, and I know Crosby is an absolute god there.
God.
Okay, so tell me a little bit. Y'all won. You got a free night out. Tell me about a night out with Sidney Crosby in downtown Halifax.
He's got his boys that he grew up with. He's a very reserved, calm guy. I think he's got that team around him when he does go out there, which is not very often. He doesn't party a ton because when he does, people are, it's like the paparazzi are out. But I will say the night we went out, it was great. I forget the bars that we went to. His buddy has one. He's going to scald me now for not remembering the name. But, he had about 8 to 10 buddies who came out, and I think they protect him. They keep him in certain areas and really look out for his best interest. And, yeah, it's like hanging out with a celebrity. It's kind of like you're watching the documentary with Jordan. Where you're going around with one of the biggest icons in the sport, a guy who carries himself, he's flawless. He doesn't make mistakes. I couldn't imagine balancing what he has in the popularity and being able to probably get away with whatever
Anything.
you want. Those other guys are around to bury the bodies, I'd imagine, if they had to.
Some fall guys. You gotta have a couple fall guys.
And he's got 8 of them. He's got the big entourage. But even with Nate now, who's came on the scene. And it was a very cool experience. It was good to see him lighten up because he's always been you know what he was like? He was like Tiger Woods when he came into the golf world.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods is a completely different guy now from what he gives the media, and I think that's but with now saying that, the media in the way they are, I feel like they'll take anything and they'll twist it. And you saw that with the Jordan documentary. Yeah. So I understand why these guys live the way they do. And I think that ultimately Crosby has handled his business the way he had to.
I tell you
is Nate MacKinnon the one, Wyndham?
Yes.
Clark? We got a buddy on tour, comes on the show, Wyndham Clark.
Man
He's
crush.
like man crush city on Nate MacKinnon.
It's
big time, admitted, open.
It's
loves him.
It's insane. Him and McDavid are 1 and 2 in the NHL. And the way that they're able to move so fast out there with their head up and control the puck as fast as their feet are moving, it doesn't make sense. It's an anomaly. It's something that the hockey world has never seen. Are they going to break Gretzky's records? No, because overall the competition everywhere has gotten so good. Everybody's training. The goalies have gotten far better. Team structure. Everybody's watching video. The overall game has improved and scoring has gone down as a result. But to watch those two guys specifically on the ice night in and night out, it's like going to like the ballet, man. They are so much better than everybody else on the ice, and it'd probably be like watching Jordan in his heyday, or LeBron, I guess now.
That's cool. Oh, one more last thing about Sidney Crosby. I played golf with him a few times. Talk about some speed. He can smash it.
Does he
dude.
smoke
He
it
probably
like
swings
all
it
hockey
128.
players? All
Like,
hockey
it's-
dudes hit it somewhat far.
How about his quads?
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Bigger than mine?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Nah, I'll believe it when I see
So
it.
that's
I'll
how
have
I
to
got
see
to
it
know.
up close.
The last time the NHL had their lockout, like 20 of the guys came to Dallas. They trained, and I was living in Dallas at the time.
Yep.
They had me take them to play golf every day. They would work out in the morning. We'd golf, then go out. I would sleep while they worked out, and then we'd go
You
play
didn't get
golf.
it.
All those
how-
You didn't get in on those workouts, dude?
Nah.
Oh, that's weird.
all those rich guys had a nice little tour going. I think they stopped here. They went to Dallas, and they went. I think Vail was another stop that they had, and they had this crew. And actually, I forget who it was. He Stanley Cup champion with Detroit. It wasn't Brad May, but either way, one of the guys. You remember how they had the fake ice at the W Scottsdale over the pool?
Yeah.
Well, he went and grabbed his skates up in the room, and he like puts them on, and he goes out on the ice, and he's acting like a bender, like he can barely stand up, and like civilians are giving him tips on how to skate, not knowing that this guy's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. I think it was Dan Cleary actually who was doing
That is
it,
hilarious.
and all the boys are just crippled, having a good chuckle at him around with everybody.
I love it.
What's your level of celeb like when you go out in like Canada, let's say? Are people recognizing you? Can you go out and not get hassled?
Yeah, I mean I would say just because of the podcast and the post career, it's definitely popped off. But everybody's really respectful. I mean, Canadians are pretty laid back. Even going in Boston, everybody's really respectful. I think because of a podcast form and it's not like being an actor or like an athlete that you never hear of. Most people who probably come up to you guys, they feel like they know you because they're just
like they know you because they're like, this is just a dude being himself. This
Yeah,
isn't like he's not playing a role in a movie.
Yeah, we're just down to earth dudes. So it's sometimes when you're having rough days and you're in your own head about whatever it is, or you're stressed out about whatever it is, it's hard because you want their experience to be a pleasant one, and you want them to go. You don't want them to be like, oh man, that guy was a f***ing asshole. But it's grown since the podcast and the post career. But as I said, I'm grateful for it. I understand that comes with it, and we're just humans, and I'll interact with anyone.
I love that,
especially if I'm on the weed. If I'm on the weed, usually it's the person coming up being like, "All right, dude, like I gotta go," and it's like, "No, talk to me."
I just wanted to say hi and get a quick picture, weirdo.
I love it.
Yo,
filing a restraining order on me.
Can you tell the story? Because I read about it and I thought it was one of the great taunts that I've read about online. When you were playing in the ECHL, the East Coast Hockey League, and you got a suspension. I think it's for one game, but it's for a pre-game taunting. You may have been wearing something during a warm-up. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was an idiot, as I mentioned, drinking a lot, living this crazy lifestyle, and I was, I had a chip to my game, and I said I would fight about 5 to 10 times a year. In the ECHL, I was an all-star, so I was more focused on playing. But Reading, who was our rival, had this Hebert was his last name, and he was just taking runs at me, and we played them quite a bit. So we were playing him in back-to-back games, and in Reading, he kept running me. So I said, "All right, let's go," and I just dummied him. And I think on the way down, he ended up hurting his shoulder too. So the next night we had him at home. And we used to have this belt of the game that we would give out as MVP. So I told the trainer, I said, put it on the bench for warm up. So we go up for warm up. I do a couple laps. I go grab the belt off the bench and I stretch at center ice with it. And I said, anybody else want a piece?
Yeah.
So their coach sends the game tape in, and I ended up getting suspended for a game. And I got a $150 fine. I had to
that
poor
stings,
guy.
dude. That stings. That's a couple pops later that night.
Good thing I was on an AHL deal, but still $150 back then. It's a kick in the nuts because that is a night with the boys, and I had to send in a cashier's check before the next game in order to play.
What's the rule that you violated? You can't wear a belt on the ice before a game. I mean, what's the problem?
I don't know. There was no written rule. I guess they had to make one after that.
The Biznasty rule.
Yeah,
you can't taunt a dude you just dummied 2 times in 2 games.
I got a game suspension, $150 fine for being and embarrassing the game.
Oh, I love it.
I love that. I read that. I was like, that's great.
Yeah,
Did he come back for round 3 after that or no?
No, I don't think I ever saw him again. I don't know if he was playing with the team anymore.
Fair enough. I love it. You get dummied twice.
Well, Biz, one thing that always tends to happen with our guests is, and I don't even know how it comes up, but they always have a great shitting your pants story.
Oh, I've
We're
got
a big
multiple,
poop your pants podcast.
Multiple.
So I'm going to ask you for your favorite one because I know my favorite of yours from some research, but I want to hear what you got.
Well, if you're referring to Shitty Cindy, that wasn't
No,
me.
it wasn't. No, it's not.
Oh,
it.
okay.
No, it's not that.
What a name, dude.
There's a lot of
What
shit
name.
stories. The first time I remember shitting my pants and really, battling through it was when I had a paper route.
This is it. This
Yeah.
is my
Yeah,
favorite.
here we go. Now we're
And
talking.
So, one thing about my parents is, and looking back, I really appreciate, they wanted me to learn the value of $1 and how to get up in the morning. And I think at 11 years old was when I started my paper route. But somebody had already had the route that was around our houses. So I had to drive my bike, at least a couple miles to get to where my route was. And on the way there, I thought I had what was a fart. And I kind of lean over and I fart and I ended up shitting my pants. But I will say, is I finished my entire route with shit in my drawers. Because I didn't want to drive my bike all the way back and explain to my mom how I had to leave again to go deliver my papers. But the dumbest thing about all of this is when I got home, instead of just throwing out the underwear, I hid them at the bottom of the hamper, assuming that my mom would just throw them in the washer. But it had stunk up the laundry.
you don't
like
say.
a bad
That's
strategy.
how stupid I
You could have
was.
just thrown them into the bushes or something on the way home, I would have thought.
Guys, it was. I panicked. All right,
Yeah, I
fucking
get
panicked.
it, dude. You got dump in your drawers, dude. Guys make irrational decisions. You know what I mean?
love it.
And it's in a paper route on a bike, dude. You're a kid. You can't hey, pull over at the next gas station. You can't go into a house you're flipping a paper at. But excuse me, Miss Jones, could I use your restroom, please? I'm about to defecate myself.
I think that when you're at a young age, sometimes you do things where you're just you can't think rationally. And I panicked. I did the whole route. I battled through it. It was just the hamper thing, man. I'm looking back. I've done a lot of dumb things.
What'd Mama say when she found them things at the bottom? Paul?
Well, she said, "What is this? Like, just throw these out, man. That's a quick fix there."
All right, should we get to
That's
E9 or you got?
incredible. I'm loving these stories,
this
but
is
yeah, I
incredible.
feel like let's get to E9.
All right, we do this
Tell
with
'em
every
about it.
guest. 9 fun questions.
Okay.
Get to know you just a little bit better.
I feel like we know you really well,
Yeah.
though, already.
I'm
By
an open
the
book,
way,
boys.
movie being made about the life of Biznasty. You get to pick who plays you. Who do you want?
Well, if we could go back in time,
McLovin.
Robert De Niro. People say
yeah.
I look like a young Robert De Niro because I'm a huge snout. Now there are pictures but if I had to pick somebody more recent,
No, it can be anybody. It's your
You
movie.
can have anyone.
We pick for you as well.
Yeah, I got a guy for you.
I'm interested to hear what you guys
I got a
picked.
guy for you.
Well, I googled badass actors or tough guy actors.
Colt just Googled like tough dudes.
and I decided I kind of thought this before, but I went with Jason Statham.
Statham.
Yes.
He's a badass.
He's a tough dude.
He
You have more hair than he
He
does.
can body some people.
he's in a lot of Guy Ritchie movies.
Yeah.
I love his stuff. I actually I would probably pick the guy in The Punisher. Something
Yeah,
Rosenthal.
what's that dude's name? I know
Josh
who you're talking about.
Rosenthal?
Is it Josh? I know who you're talking about.
He's
The
got
Punisher
a
guy. What's his
awful
name?
nose too,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people often say
love
that.
that
That's
you just
actually a
base it
good
on
one.
nose.
That's actually a really. You kind of like legit look like
Thank
that
you.
dude. Yeah, that's actually.
Did
a
I
good
beat
one.
your answer?
I had you. Well, you might like mine. Tom Hardy.
Girls like him.
You know
Oh,
what Tom Hardy
that was
is, dude? He
Bane
plays.
from
He was
Batman.
Bane in Batman with the
Valiant.
mask. He's a monster.
He is A-list.
Yeah, that's a tough one to top. I don't just throw these around like hotcakes, dude. I really put some thought into this.
I'd pick him because I think him and that, like the elitist crew, like Brad Pitt and Leo, all hang out together. So maybe there'd be a chance that I'd
He's
be
the
playing
alpha
tummy sticks
wherever
with
he's
these guys.
hanging out.
Yeah.
He's the alpha.
Tummy sticks.
I'll
has
be
been
buddied.
said.
You watch
rubbing
Peaky,
elbows.
You watch Peaky Blinders?
I have never seen that.
Oh, dude,
neither.
he's a badass in that.
Yes.
There's only one role he can. You can't make him be like the little bitch. You know, he's only can play one role. He's got to be the toughest dude in the movie.
There was just one that came out and it bombed. I believe it was the Capone movie. Or maybe it's a TV show.
Oh, maybe TV.
And
feel
I
like
was
there's no
surprised to
movie.
hear
It
that.
was
'cause-
the real long one on Netflix, right?
yes, and somebody said
It sucked.
RA, my co-host was Spittin' Chicklets, Rear Admiral, which is another great nickname for you. But he's a big Tom Hardy guy, and he said that it wasn't very good. He said it was unwatchable. He
That's
turned
surprising for Tommy Boy.
it off. Right.
He puts out heat.
no-
What's Rear Admiral? Because I know that's the guy you host with the Spittin' Chicklets. What is that name from? That's not a real name.
I think he got it in college for examples. Rear Admiral. I think he used to like it in the Brown.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, that makes sense.
He's a good dynamic to the podcast because he's that blue collar fan. That he's seen some shit. He's got some crazy stories of sneaking into places and ending up in like they did a Rolling Stones. I think they were like in the People's Magazine or something, and he snuck into the show, or he bought a ticket to the upper bowl and ended up sneaking down to front row, and then they snapped a picture, and then his wife went and bought the magazine just like unexpectedly and like was like, hey, the Rolling Stones were in it. And then he was open. He's like, I think I was at this show. And then lo and behold, he's in one of the pictures in the magazine. So he's kind of the Forrest Gump of sneaking into events. And he's been to like 4 cup celebrations where he's gotten into the locker room when guys are celebrating with the cup. I think he's got a picture with Darren McCarty like this, like everyone's having beers and cigars after they won.
Who the hell's this guy?
Yeah, he's there.
Hey, dude, you want to drink out of the cup?
Yeah. He was the guy who was sneaking into all these festivals before it became popular.
Rear Admiral, what a name!
Yeah,
I love it. All right,
Colt, go.
All right, number 2. There's another podcast at Barstool, golf podcast, Foreplay.
Yeah.
Okay. Golf match between Foreplay guys and Spit and Chiclet guys. Who gets the W? Because they're not very good at golf over there.
Yeah, they got to.
Well, neither am I. So they got to have high handicaps.
Riggs is like a 9. I think he's the best.
I think eventually we'll do a Sandbagger with the Foreplay guys. And there's a bit of a rift between Witt and Riggs, given they were supposed to play heads up, and then Witt couldn't do it because he qualified for a USGA 2-ball event. And I think it got a little bit heated to where I don't know if it's going to go down, but I think eventually it'd be nice to team up with those guys. And I think they've done a wonderful job of growing the game and doing so in their own unique way. I mean, credit to them. Riggs works his balls off.
Yeah, he
too.
does.
He's
everywhere. Those guys are everywhere.
Everywhere. And same with Borelli. Trent is the other guy. And who is there one more that I'm forgetting?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, though.
Yeah.
Trent,
the bigger
Frankie,
dude,
and
or no?
Riggs.
But I feel like there was a little bit of a... I think it's a bit of a fun riff, but it got a little bit serious there because they were on Barstool Radio
dude,
going back.
well,
and
Riggs
forth.
cannot beat Ryan Whitney.
If Witt made it to the USGA 4-ball, there ain't no chance. That's a dirt nap.
No, I think that
That's
Riggsy was going to get
That's
some
bedtime
strokes
for Riggs.
for sure.
Yeah, he'd have to, dude. Because if you're making the USGA 4-ball, that's like legit good players.
I don't know who the best 2 guys out of the Foreplay podcast are at golf, but I would like to challenge them.
Yeah, make that up.
I think that'd be fun. If
Yeah.
you need another couple to join in.
You could host us.
Yes, dude.
Oh,
we'll
sounds
commentate.
incredible.
Oh, well, hey, maybe when we'll come to Arizona and we'll do a Sandbagger with you guys.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, we want to do a bunch of them. That's why we created it into this thing. We just did one with Yandel, Keith Yandel and Kevin Hayes, who I played with Keith Yandel here. Man, this guy was like the funniest guy in the locker room.
Perfect.
Nobody knew because he was a legitimate defenseman and he wasn't being a clown all the time in the media. But as far as definitely top 3 funniest guys I've ever played with.
I love that.
Beautiful. All right, next one. Who was the one guy you played against who you wanted to fight the least? I don't want to say like you were scared to fight, but like guy that you saw him and you're like, I hope that doesn't happen tonight.
God rest his soul, Derek Bugard. He ended up passing away. Very unfortunate, but he was, they nicknamed him the Boogeyman for a reason. And we just had Todd Fedoruk on our podcast, who was a legitimate NHL heavyweight, and he told the story about the time he fought Derek Bugard. And Bugard, he punched properly, and he was so big that he could punch from the hip. So he would kind of punch up a little bit. And it was odd because like most guys are going lateral. If anything, if you're a big guy, you're punching down. But he cocked back and he got Fridge, Todd Fedoruk, that's his nickname. He got him right in the face and he broke his face. Caved his orbital bone. And his profile picture on social media is the picture of the x-ray. And he was just so feared. He was so big and strong. And he just punched so lethal. When he punched to end your life. And fortunately for Todd Fedoruk, it didn't. But he it changed his career. And I think he was really never the same after that. And he's got plates in his face. They had to reconstruct it. But he was in the NHL when I first started. As we mentioned, he passed away. But another guy was probably Colt Knost.
Yeah.
Who played for you mentioned him, right?
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. Commodore, yeah.
There's certain guys that are just so scary because they're willing to stand in there and they punch with so much velocity that it made my pregame nap very uncomfortable, where most of the time I wouldn't be able to sleep, knowing that there was a potential that he would be in the lineup, and of course that I would, because I told you about how half the time I was a healthy scratch, so I wouldn't know if I was in the lineup some nights before I got to the rink. And days where we were playing his teams and I was a healthy scratch, it was more of a relief than anything. And I have no problem admitting that I was fearful of those guys. They were scary guys.
There's just a different screw loose in some of those dudes, I feel like.
But what's crazy about it, we interviewed Colt Knost for the Spit and Chicklets podcast, and these guys off the ice are the nicest guys in the world. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't harm a fly. So it's hard. Some of these guys have to live with it now. They had to put this mask on and be these scary individuals for a long part. And we also touched on earlier how eventually that natural ability to like force yourself to get up to do that and harm other people, I think it does fizzle off. And part of that might be because of the pain you're inflicting to others.
Exactly. Yeah, you're the same way. I mean, you would never, if you just sat down and talked to you and be like, oh, this is the guy that used to just break people's faces every night.
We're gonna throw two golfers in a hockey fight, two that are rather large for golf: Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka. But they have to be on skates. Who do you think would win this little tussle?
Unpopular answer, I'd see DeChambeau, probably because he would spend enough time and look at the science of it to figure out how to balance himself on skates. But I love that rivalry and that joshing back and forth. These guys hate each other, right? Is that pretty safe to say?
They throw jabs. I don't know if like hate, but yeah, like they like to stoke the fire a little bit.
I think golf needs that. I agree. I think it's great for it. Dude, I don't know, Koepka, at first he kind of rubbed me the wrong way because when he started winning, he started getting very lippy. But before I open my mouth, I usually ask other guys. And Witt said the few times he's brought up good points, like guys playing slow. Now, I play slow. So I sometimes I'll stand over the ball for like 30 seconds where I'm nervous and I'm like, because you got to make sure your feet are good. Or what am I doing with my hips here? What's going to happen? So I'm an absolute mental midget on the golf course.
I love it.
So I can
you give him the pass on the slow play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then other cases, but he's great for golf too, and he brings it in the big championships. But I was happy to see Bryson DeChambeau win that U.S. Open.
All right. Golf could use some more of that too. Like, just it doesn't have to be all out hate. Just like let's get a little rivalry because like we want it. But everybody's such good friends now on the PGA Tour. Like they wait for each other.
Yeah, we call it tummy sticks. It's like the guys in warm up, like hitting each other's shin pads. Like, what's going on, buddy? It's just like, no, none of that shit. I want the rivalries.
Yeah, some real hate.
It's like Tiger when he played, man. He wouldn't even say hi to guys.
Well, it wasn't even a fair rivalry though. There was no one that was good enough to be a rival.
They kept trying to make rivalry. As soon as somebody won a tournament, like, oh, here's the next guy to challenge Tiger. It never happened. Yeah, he went through 12 rivals.
They're like, oh, what are you doing post match? You can crush my old lady. Like, it's just like, oh, no,
whatever you want, dude. You want to hang out?
Ultimate tummy sticks.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next question. What's proven harder for you to do in your life? Score a goal in the NHL or get through an ad read on your podcast without butchering it?
Well, I wasn't very good at either. I
heard you have a tough time with the ad reads. I
don't know if it's like dyslexia or whatever it is. I just look at the page and I feel like the number or the words. There you go. That's probably I think they're numbers. That's
all right, that explains it.
I feel like the words are jumping around on the page and and then the anxiety builds up. So reading was never my forte. At least doing it aloud.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's different. We do them on the radio all the time, and we just stare at each other while we read them, just waiting for one person to butcher it, and then we just laugh at them. It's different, dude. Reading under pressure is tough.
Very, very tough. And some of these news anchors, they read the teleprompter, and they just do it so naturally. It's amazing to me.
Yeah,
it's a skill.
Gift. It's a gift.
For sure. All right, I know you just met the Sleaze. Okay, he's obviously an incredible athlete.
Check me out if you want.
Look out.
Check out the build.
Did you play pro golf as well?
Correct, on a low level. What's the ECHL? Is that where you played at?
Yeah,
I did a lot of that. Consider me an ECHL fucking legend, bro.
Did you win a bunch on that tour?
Countless, bro.
That's awesome.
They're writing books about me around
the
Midwest. The Midwest Jicky Jacks, dude. I had to run there like you wouldn't believe. Tiger 2000.
Some of my best experiences. I'm very grateful for playing in those lower leagues because that's where all the fun shit happens.
It's so fun, dude. It's a different world. I mean, you don't make anything. You can barely survive, but in terms of like just straight fun, it's tough to beat.
Like where guys just like ripping,
oh, dude, you make a $10,000 winner's check. You might as well just hit the Powerball, and it's like all my guys are taken care of tonight. We're gonna go send it. We're gonna spend 60% of this check tonight. All that stuff.
A lot of drug abuse on tour.
Fifth Amendment type deal. Plead the fifth if, like my guy Chris Rock. But there's let's just say there's no testing out there. So there's some people that will be a little bit liberal with the intake.
Fair enough.
All right, well, let's get to the question.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to sweat like
this. This bet has been 3 years in the making, and it has not happened yet.
It's going to happen.
But Ray Whitney has challenged the Sleaze to two things. He's never been on skates.
Not one time. Correction. When I was like 8 or 9,
okay.
We had
you haven't been on skates lately. Sleaze thinks he can stand on the blue line on skates and fly a puck into the net.
50
pucks. He has to fly one all the way into the net.
In the air.
He's never been on skates, never hit a puck.
Far blue line.
No, the closer blue line.
The closest one,
so
dude.
The same zone.
So all you have to do is elevate it with a shot, and it has to stay in the air as it enters.
It has to hit the net in the air. 1 out of 50.
I think you could do that.
You're the first person that
That's
has
my
said
guy.
this.
This is the guy, dude.
Well, that's why I asked far blue line. Then there would definitely be
Far
a question.
blue line 0.0.
Yeah.
Near
But he's
blue
never
line,
even,
dude. I'll figure
I don't
it
know
out.
if he can stand up on skates.
What, dude? Look at me, bud.
I mean, if you're allowed to pick any type of curve that you want, I think 100% you can
I'll
do
try
it.
a couple slappies.
I would
I'll try a
even
couple
put
wristers.
money on it against Ray Whitney if he doesn't believe you
Well,
can
we're
do
going to
it.
do it, and we're going to video the whole thing, so you will be abreast of what happens.
Yeah, I'll
I'm going
come.
to throw lasers at that thing.
And the
Fucking
other thing,
right.
the other thing Ray claims is that he can get the full length of ice to pick up as much speed as he wants, and Ray will stand at the other end, and he said he won't move me an inch.
Full speed, I get as
Not
much.
me, he won't move Ray. I'm not involved in this.
Ray can't move an inch, he says.
No, I agree that you wouldn't be able to move him. As in, like, you're taking a run at him.
What if
and
I
him-
just launch my? What if I'm skating 20 miles an hour, which I got speed, dude.
No.
Look at the legs; they're built for speed, and I just launch myself at Ray Whitney. You don't think I can make him budge?
No, he'll know how to find his edge of where you're coming from, and that's one thing about Ray. I mean, he was an undersized guy, and he was one of the guys that paved the way for these smaller guys of today. Like, people don't understand when Ray Whitney broke in, there weren't many small guys. I think he would say that Theo Fleury was probably the guy, the smaller guy, and the way he played. Ray wasn't as crazy of a player and as running around and hammering guys and yapping, but he could take the abuse, and he found a way. I think he had over 1,100 points in the NHL. So Ray is
Played for like 3 decades.
well.
He should have a lot of
23
points.
seasons.
Yeah.
It was his off-ice habits, though, as far as his diet's concerned and the way he worked out in the gym. Ray Whitney was he was a true professional, and I'm happy I got to play with him. And an unbelievable storyteller.
One of the most fun guys you can ever play golf with.
Did he
The
come on this
best.
podcast?
Not yet.
He's
He's been
coming.
He's been out
He's
gone all
coming.
summer.
I
He will
have
be.
been begging him to come on Spit and Chicklets because he also played in all these different eras with all these different teams where he played with a bunch of Hall of Famers. He could probably come on for a 3-hour podcast, and every story would be banger after banger.
Yep.
He's
good
got
ones.
it. And he made up for his lack of yapping in the NFL on the golf course because you get him out there and he doesn't shut his.
Ask him
and he's nice. Like, he's a legit plus one.
Yeah, he's a good
Dude,
golfer.
he's good.
Ask him about his pregame ritual in playoffs before he.
Okay.
I think it was the year they won the Cup, and then he even did it when he was in Arizona the year we went on our run. And
Really?
that's all I'm going to say. He had a pregame ritual before he left the house.
All right, we'll save that.
All
We'll
right.
save that for when he comes
He
on.
actually caddied for me in my last tour event at Phoenix Open.
He was
That's-
shitting his pants, not like the paper route, but pretty comparable.
He was
He
nervous.
was nervous.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He also butchered Graham. He caddied for Graham DeLette at the Olympics, the Canadian, and he messed up and forgot the yardage book and had to sprint back like 300 yards on the first hole and get the yardage book.
But he's an
and
athlete,
sprint
so
back.
So he's
fine.
0 for 2 in
But
the
he can
caddy.
handle it. So yeah, don't ever.
No,
ask
he
him
did
for a
great
loop.
for me. He was just nervous.
Don't ever. Yeah, he's got that nervous energy. All right, is it my turn?
Yep.
All right, next question. Basic one. Favorite NHL city to party in after a game?
Chicago was really good to us. Where it would be where our road trips would take us, and we would be there for a couple days. So we could really get after it when you'd have 2 days before the next game. Chicago was where we had my first rookie party, and actually where my good friend Taylor Pyatt, who lives in town here, ended up meeting his future wife at one of the places we ended up going. Nashville was great because we had a lot of older guys my first couple of years where they were professionals. They wouldn't drink as much as us younger guys, but Nashville seemed to be the place that everybody would go out, and we would go out as the full team. Even Donor would be out and maybe even have a couple pops if we were lucky, and you had the live music. And I really embraced the city of Nashville. It was a blast. As far as like getting after it, I would say LA was top notch. If you went up to Vancouver though, Vancouver or Toronto, if you went there as a hockey player and didn't get laid, you might as well. If you were looking for it, you might as well saw your dick off and hand it in. It didn't matter.
I think you're gonna get to every city at some point.
Yeah.
You know what else? Dallas.
I did pretty
and
good there.
Tampa's pretty good.
If I could pick one, though, I would say going to Vancouver was always awesome, and that's probably why I ended up spending my summers there at one point towards the end of my career. I started going there every summer to train and
Vancouver's incredible.
and crush.
All right.
Crush.
This
that
one
leads in perfect to the.
This one's
last.
kind of tough. Okay. 2 of your buddies, Ryan Whitney, in the rear, Admiral, are drowning in the ocean. You only got one life jacket to save one of them. Who's it going to get thrown to?
This could cause some dissension.
Well, RA can't swim, and we just did a boating excursion, and he went in the water, and Donnie Does had to save him. So I would imagine Whit would have the best chance to survive without one. So I'd probably have to give it to Rear. And that's nothing against Whit. I'm saying there's no way Rear's
can't swim.
surviving without a life jacket.
All right, perfect.
But if we're talking from a monetary standpoint, I mean, I think Whit is the great storyteller of our podcast, and I think
we need him.
He's more valuable.
He's
to
the star of the show. He's the we call him the what's her name? Whitney Houston.
Oh, Whitney Houston.
Because he's
Whitney
the
Cummings.
Well, she tells
No,
us
the
talks.
comic.
because he's the diva of the podcast.
Oh.
We got to make sure Whit's happy. Whit, everything good. Just show up and tell the stories, and we're good. We'll do all the rest.
He's like Mariah. You
Yes.
gotta have that bubble bath before. And
He's
all
got a
that stuff.
rider list this
Yeah,
long.
Yeah, I need Fiji water, but from Fiji. I'm not talking
But
about a bottle.
fly it in.
All right, last one, dude. With this, you just touched on it, so this is perfect. You got a nice track record with the ladies, okay? Very well documented. If you could take a run at one current celebrity, who would it be? Yeah, think about this, dude.
If my girlfriend listens to this, she's got to be happy that I haven't given it any type of thought as of late. It used to be Scarlett Johansson back in the day, and she's evolved into like a superstar actress too. I just saw that movie Jojo
You could
Rabbit.
take
It was
Ryan Reynolds
awesome.
too. Are they still dating? Is that a
No,
thing?
no, he's with Blake Lively.
No,
Come on,
there
man.
you go.
Get with it.
I'm out of my TMZ. Scarlett Joe?
Not her now.
Okay. Washed up.
I think the girl from Wolf of Wall Street would have been my
Margot
Robbie.
Robbie. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
She frequents Ranger games, and she's always got the Lundqvist jersey on. I mean, Christ, if I looked like that guy, and he's got an absolute wrench on him too. Apparently, guys, we've had guys on the podcast, and we have some cock talk once in a while. We joke around about it, and apparently he's got an absolute weapon on him.
Great. Good looking, good at his sport.
Perfect comb
An
over.
absolute weapon.
He's a model through and through. He's married, but man, if I was him playing in NYC, I don't know if I would have ever got married. I think he probably would have been able to take a run at Margot Robbie.
All right, Margot. That's a hard one to argue with. Yeah.
Always at the top of the list.
And she's an incredible actress too.
Yeah, she is.
The Duchess.
Well, Biz, it's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. That was fun.
You're a legend. Thanks for coming on, dude. We'll get that Sandbagger deal lined up, and I'll keep you abreast of this Ray Whitney bet.
What are your guys'
happening, dude.
handicaps?
It's happening. +2.
+4.
Oh, you've fallen off a little bit since retiring?
Yeah, just a little bit. No, +4, not 4. Like,
Oh, so you're the
Yeah.
other way. You're,
yeah.
Like a -4 from what you're thinking.
Come on, man. I'll always have it. I ain't gonna be a 4.
I was gonna say, how the did you get on tour if you're that
almighty.
shit?
He's a 4. He's a
Fuck,
7.
I'll play you straight up, bitch.
He's a 76, 77 guy.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be coming in. Oh, ask Ray Whitney about when we played at Whisper Rock, and then I tweeted out after about seeing the bra for Mickelson's bitch tits in the locker, and then I basically am never allowed back at Whisper Rock.
Well, that's where we're members.
Well, we'll slide you back in.
we'll get you
We'll
in.
sneak you in the back.
Do you think they would allow us to do it there?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Maybe we have to take
Anything's
this part
possible.
out. But I think I shot a 130 there.
Good round.
Yeah,
Not bad.
and I was standing over my ball for 30 seconds to a minute. So I know if I'm going back, Ray Whitney ain't inviting me.
We're going to have
I
to tee
love
off late and try to finish before dark.
We can do it
at
at
that.
Silverleaf for sure.
Yeah,
My redemption at Whisper Rock, the Sandbagger Invitational with
Dude, that
Drew
was
and
a
Colt.
blast.
we'll make it happen. All right, love you, Biznasty. Appreciate you, brother.
Boys,
fun,
thank
dude.
you.
Thank
Great
you.
chatting.
Absolutely.
Well, Sleaze, that was a rather entertaining interview with Biznasty. I mean, the hockey guys, they just let it go.
They do not give a damn about much. And I like we have a lot of the golfers on here. Obviously, we're a golf show, but I like mixing it up with some of the non-golfers sometimes. We've had football players, baseball players. Now we get some hockey guys in here. Roenick was great when he came in. The hockey dudes, if you were looking for like who would be the most fun to just go to the bar and sit down and have a couple with, like they're tough to top.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, these hockey guys, they are a blast. They like to golf, they like to gamble, and they like to party
And they
a
got
little bit.
crazy stories.
Incredible stories.
Yeah.
I love his when he was a little mail boy back in the day.
Yeah, can you imagine him just cruising around? Yeah, exactly. I like when he knocked the dude out and then brought the belt, knocked him out twice, and then brought the belt out for the warm up for the game the next time.
But it's also cool to see a guy. I mean, this guy, they have one of the most successful podcasts in the world. So it's cool to talk to him, pick his brain a little bit. I mean, they have like over 800,000 followers on Instagram.
I think they're like the kind of buttoned up culture that you see on TV, right? They're just the dudes that played hockey. They know the game, and they talk about it just exactly how guys would sit around talking about it in their house. And people people like that. They don't want all the like official, network type stuff right now.
Yep. Biznasty does love golf. Him and his partner Ryan Whitney have started the Sandbagger Invitational, where they play a couple other hockey guys or some people from other sports. It's a lot of fun. We're trying to work our way into doing a little commentating when they come out here in Scottsdale.
Would love that. Commentate or get on the course. We could shoot a grizz just like anybody else can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they are doing some great things over at Spit and Chicklets. They're a blast. Go check them out. That's for sure. But Sleaze, what a lineup we have coming up. Obviously, we just talked about our Florida trip a little earlier. We don't know quite the order yet, but we're going Masters Week next week. We're going to do a little special preview show sponsored by Chirp. And later on, we got Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, who's done unbelievable things for golf, and his Folds of Honor is unbelievable. Great. And then, like I said, we got Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, Matthew Wolff. Stay tuned. Some big guests coming your way. You're not going to want to miss it. That's going to do it for this week's Golf Subpar.